Look, let's talk about the fallout. Look, to be honest, Sir Michael, I am quite shocked that Andrew has not already been removed from the royal line of succession. I mean, there's been allegations of his relationship going, dating back years when it comes to him and Jeffrey Epstein, and then he was removed from. He had his titles removed, and it's been a slow saga since then. What is the hold up here? Why is there such a delay?
That's a really good question, Danica. And one of the reasons why is because of the incredible complexity. It can't just be done with the tick of a box or the signing of a pen. To change the line of succession of the Australian crown or the British crown, the New Zealand crown, it's going to require legislation, not just in the UK or Australia, but actually in 15 countries around the world. That's the only way you can change it under the Westminster Statutes of 1930. That means that not only would Australia have to pass legislation, but all 7 of the Australian states would have to pass their own legislation. Canada and its 10 provinces, all of those individual provinces would have to pass the legislation, and 13 other countries too. So it would be hugely complicated, hugely expensive. It would take probably 2 or 3 years, and I'm not sure that those countries will want to do that. The last time, Danica, that we actually did change the order of succession was in 2013, 12 years ago, and that was for a pretty good reason, because that was a wish to change the rules of primogeniture, because for centuries, male children had preference over female children, and that was changed in 2013 to make them gender neutral, and also to allow members of the royal family to marry Roman Catholics without losing their place in the line of succession. So those were the 2 pretty good reasons, I think you'd agree, that the line of succession was changed in 2013. But even despite the fact that those were really good reasons, it still took 2 years. It took a massive amount of diplomatic negotiation, time and skill to actually get it done, and it still took years. On this occasion, I think a lot of legislators around the world will be saying to themselves, we're not going to waste time on this because Andrew is 8th in line to the throne. There's no reasonable chance that he could ever be king. And so it's pointless and actually quite vindictive to remove him from the line of succession. It's a bit performative. And I don't think it's going to happen. I think people will just say, let's leave it alone and see how things progress.
Yeah, and I mean, we're all hinging on what actually happens from here on in. There's still so much to come from the investigation, so I guess we'll wait and see. And just on that, public support for the royal family has fallen 7% now in 4 months because of this Andrew scandal. I'll take you through it. So every single member has had a downturn. Prince William's ratings have dropped 8 points. Catherine, the Princess of Wales, down 7. Princess Anne recorded the steepest fall, which I thought was interesting, down 9, while the King and Queen have seen smaller but still notable drops of 5 and 3 points respectively, and just 28% of people believe that the royal family have actually handled this Andrew situation well. What does that tell you?
Well, it is obviously a shame because I think most members of the royal family, as we know, work incredibly hard and are devoted to public service and duty. But in the same way that if a restaurant chain, has a food poisoning outbreak, the whole restaurant chain loses business for a bit. That tends to be what happens when something like this has occurred. And, we find the polls do fluctuate. I think looking at the long arc of history, Danica, which I'm always tempted to do with these sorts of situations, Queen Victoria, way back in the 1870s, the monarchy was very, very unpopular, far more unpopular than those polls today are indicating. People were even putting to let signs up on the gates of Buckingham Palace in the 1870s because they never saw Queen Victoria because she was secluded in her widowhood. And things bounced back from that. And what I would say is this, even if we had a president instead of a king. Presidents' brothers can also be arrested. Presidents' family members can also get into trouble. It's not as though this is something that is unique to any one family. And the fact that it hasn't happened since the 1640s in this family, the royal family, perhaps means that it's less likely than in the average family because of how they're trained and how they're brought up. So I think, particularly when it comes to Australia, the love that the King of Australia has for Australia, and the devotion that the royal family have shown for several generations now to the Commonwealth generally and to their duty, I hope that people will look at that and say, well, it's not as though it's going to be any different if we had a democratically elected person. We all know that our politicians are also very flawed people. And I say that as a politician myself.